Hello and welcome everybody to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on all our social networks and to catch us every day by logging on to our website, mexiconewsnetwork.com, for relevant stories and news. Let's start with today's show. Just a month away from starting the renegotiation of the free trade agreement, US President Donald Trump sets his priorities: reducing the trade deficit and recovering manufacturing jobs. No longer are we going to allow other countries to break the rules, steal our jobs, and drain our wealth, he said. Meanwhile, United States Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer distributed an 18-page document to members of Congress detailing the goals of the Nafta renegotiation. The document states that Mexico, as of now, has a deficit close to $64 billion, as opposed to the surplus it had when the trade agreement first came into force. Hence, the United States aims to equilibrate this balance of trade and advance the access of its products to the Canadian and Mexican markets. Other objectives identified by the document are the elimination of subsidies and practices that distort the market, reinforce the obligations of partners in labor and environmental issues, and include in the treaty a section on new forms of digital business. The brief provided by Lighthizer raises the possibility of eliminating the mechanism of dispute resolution in case of unfair competition and the creation of a tool to avoid the manipulation of foreign exchange. The list will be debated during this month prior to negotiation and may be amended by US lawmakers. In other news, although it entered into force on July the 1st, the 3.3 invoice of the Mexican Tax Administration System, SAT, will be mandatory until December the 1st, 2017. However, both the government as well as financial experts recommend that whether you're a local or have a business in Mexico, people start using it as soon as possible, so as to get accustomed to the elements that conform it. The electronic invoice, also called by the SAT as CFDI, Digital Fiscal Certificates by Internet, will include some modifications to previous features, as well as the addition of two new components. The receipt of payments, which seeks to facilitate the concordance between the invoices against their payments, and the payroll, which will be issued in case of remuneration of salaries, wages, and assimilated, similar to an invoice of expenses. Another objective of this new version is to prevent issuers from making mistakes, hence the modifications to the rules that allow validation through the RFC, the Federal Contributors Register, in case it is misspelled or the invoice will be rejected. This will prevent errors and customers from having to go months later to request modifications or cancellations. These changes will give more work to the taxpayer, but will allow the SAT to have greater certainty if the operations were performed or were only invoiced. Version 3.2 CFDIs issued after November 30th will no longer be valid. Moving on. According to a study by the World Bank, at the height of the technological era, young people are not choosing careers according to the times and the medium and long-term changes we should expect in the dynamics of labor. The report, At a Crossroads, Higher Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, warns that almost half of people joining higher education do so in studies related to social sciences, law, and business, while science is chosen by only 5.5%. These figures contrast with another World Bank report, The Future of Jobs, which details that automation and robotization of jobs will be palpable in the coming years. According to specialists, the careers or professions that a decade ago required the knowledge and specialization of the person to carry out certain procedures can now be replaced by electronic portals or specific programs and apps that synthesize the work. In that sense, the demand for jobs will be tilted to the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics areas, as well as manufacturing and production, while opportunities will be less pronounced in sectors such as administration and office work. And finally, let's take a look at the markets. The Mexican peso decreased 0.08% to 17.52 from 17.54 in the previous trading session. IPC Mexico decreased 0.02% to 51,077 from 51,087 in the previous trading session. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.